My name is Beth Chitekwebiti. I'm the director of the SDI Secretariat based in Cape Town. SDI, as some of you may know, is an international network of slum dwellers organized in over 100 cities in 30 some countries in the global south. This particular resilience hub is showcasing work of our African affiliates, but we also work in Latin America and Asia. We have community voices speaking through their actions on the ground around to address the climate crisis. We're also fortunate to have two partners who we work with globally as well as at a local level, joining us to provide insight into the actions and working partnerships with the SDI network. We have Mr. David Tembo from Zambia, and we have Julian Baskin from our partner Cities Alliance. Welcome, Mr. Tembo and Julian. Just to quickly contextualize these issues, our experience as SDI is the urban poor have to adapt, have to look for ways to be resilient in the midst of the climate crisis as a matter of course, because these issues are affecting them on a daily basis. So it's not a question of should they, it's actually a question of it's a necessity. This comes from the fact that in a lot of cases, settlements where informal settlements have emerged are often in the most vulnerable of land in our cities. So in areas that are prone to flooding with very little infrastructure or none at all. In certain instances where resilient measures are put in place, they often actually can result in further challenges where oftentimes informal settlements are perceived to be illegal. So we found that in our affiliates who are in coastal cities often end up experiencing very forceful evictions where local government or central government sees fit to address the increasing sea levels. So the issue about resilience is not just around addressing the existing challenges. It is also about what is the most suitable and way to address these challenges, and what all of our presenters will highlight is the absolute imperative of centering the solutions to address the climate crisis on the lived experience of the people living in informal settlements themselves, and ensuring that they are involved in the decision making, as well as ensuring that resources to address the climate emergency reaches the grassroots communities that are having to deal with this emergency. We will have about 1.5 hours for this session. We'll hear from grassroots communities from Zambia, Uganda, Sierra Leone, and Kenya, as well as our partners, as I mentioned. We hope that you can all it can be an interactive session. If you have any questions or comments, please use the chat box so that we can have a conversation going as we proceed with the session. Thank you very much. We'll start with a short film showcasing the climate the work on climate, addressing climate crisis from our affiliates in Kenya. Thank you.
So kwa majina naitwa Dadvin Makre, lakini ile jina yangu ya kazi naitwa Mr. Blessing. So mimi kama Mr. Blessing, mimi ni youth leader wa hii mtaa. Hii area inaitwa Vihiga, Kiambio sana sana. So mimi ni youth leader, niko na group inaitwa The Champions of Progress. Tunadeal sana sana na tunasikia iko na progress ya vijana utoke level 1 uingie level nyingine. So lately tumekuwa tukifanya clean up, na pia mimi profession yangu mimi ni plant operator by profession. So unaona story ya environment clean up hiyo tunafanyanga every Sunday, na ndio maana unapata hadi mtaa iko hivi vile ilikuwa wasi clean up ya mtaa, at least kwa ghetto zote. By the way, kitu moja tuko proud about ni kwa ghetto zote, hii ghetto yetu ndio inakuanga at least clean kuliko zote. Kwa namba Nairobi yote hii ndio ghetto yenye huko safi. So hiyo clean up ndio inafanya hii mtaa inang'ara hivi, na bado ni source of employment kwa vijana wengine. So climate change, hata reason main yenye ilifanya tuanze garbage collection na kila kitu kuhusiana na environment ni hiyo story ya climate change. Lately ukiangalia hii mtaa yetu, especially hata hapa Malituko, ukiangalia tu background, kuna daraja yenyewe imeteremka chini. Juu ya nini? Soil erosion. Ukiangalia bado kuna matakataka. In as much as tunapunguza, bado takataka ni mingi na kila siku zinadampiwa. So sisi tunafanya tu ile kidogo, which tunaweza sema ni 10%. Hiyo nyingine so unaona bado imekwama hapa kwa maji. In as much as tunaongelelea climate change, inatu affect sana sisi sana sana wenye tunaishi ndani ya mageto. Unajua overpopulation inaleta takataka zinakuwa mingi. Human activity na which ni deforestation, mamiti kukatwa, bado overpopulation, na hata tuna the best way ya kudampizo takataka zetu. Sisi unaona ile yenye tumefanya so far ni kuchukua, at least tujaribu kuziweka mahali pamoja, zichukuliwe na gari ipelekwe mahali zinaweza dampiwa. Then issue nyingine, so unaona hapo hapa nyuma kuna mamiti, hiyo side nyingine kuna miti, kuna masaa. Sisi kama group tunakuja huku chini, tuna plant trees. Those zingine zisurviving, but zile zenye zimesurvive zinasaidia sana kushika hiyo soil erosion. Then kuna story ya mataya. Ukienda ile side ya chini kidogo, hata unaweza iona from afar, kuna mataya zenye tumeplant pia tumezichimbilia chini. Moja hiyo taya inashikilia the soil. Then kuna gabions hii side, then kuna bado gabions hii side nyingine. Hii side ni church ilitengeneza, lakini hizo unaona ni magunia tulizipanga. So hiyo ni kazi yetu. Sisi tunataka street yetu ikuwe na dust litter bins. Mtu akikula ndizi yake unaitupa hapo. Moja inaanza na hiyo, then from hapo ndio tunaweza fanya hizi zingine kubwa, but kitu ya main kwanza dustbin ziwepo. Then from hapo kuna ile responsibility yetu kama mayouth. Si bado sisi ndio bado tuna litter, si ndio? So ni responsibility yako kumekishwa takataka yako imedisposiwa the best place. Kuna hizi ma recycle bins zenye zopatiano, it is better tukizitumia. Kuna hizi za kahawa pia nishaonyesha wase, ukimaliza unakakunja hivi kana kwa kitu kadogo. Hii ita reduce hii takataka zenye unapata mtu anabebachwa la paper bag nini na nini. So ni responsibility yetu in as much as bado ni responsibility ya government. Tusi government inalita hapa, ni sisi wenyewe tunalita hii area. So
thank you very much. Apologies for, I don't know if it's just me, but the sound on that video was not, maybe it's streaming it from one device to another. It wasn't great from my end, but hopefully that was, we all were able to get something from that particular video clip. What we're moving into community experiences, and we would like to hear from three federation leaders, Sarah Nambozo, Nicera, Wanjiru, and Yirah Conteh. I think Nicera will speak first, and then Sarah. I cannot see Yirah, but if he comes through, we will call him to then speak. You all have 5 minutes each. Sarah, Nicera, Sarah, and Yirah, please try and keep to the time so that we can have a program that is timeless. Thank you. So Nicera, over to you.
Thank you. I'll stick to 5 minutes only. So my name is Nicera, and I'll quickly jump into my presentation, and I'm having some few slides. And as you heard, I am a proud federation member in Kenya, and that is Muungano Wanavijiji. And in my first slide, you can look into this slide and you see the housing. And I can say that one of the major challenges that we're facing around climate change is housing and infrastructure. And as I live around here, by the way, this is a photo that was taken in Kibra. And we have so many such kind of photos. And when you speak about the climate change in a global level, for us, we see it as, for us, we are seeing it locally, climate change locally. But how are we seeing it that way? So you can go to the second slide, please. Okay, as I said, communities face a lot of challenges, and one is the global challenge. When it comes to global challenge, we are speaking about, we had the COVID-19, but that one didn't, but COVID-19, we were facing COVID-19, yes, but also the climate change. The migration, we speak about migration globally, but for us, when it comes to local level, we are speaking about lack of urbanization, infrastructure, and housing. The other thing is we are speaking about the flooding, as you saw in the video, contamination, which is open trash, which is brought about by the open trash, and also security. And also there's no security, eviction, no tenant, and also the street crime. But then I'll say this hope, because now communities are now coming up together through Muungano Wanavijiji, which is SDI, and are coming up with initiatives that are adapting to climate change. So you can go to the third slide, please. There you go. You can see in the photo, we have the global challenge, which is climate change. But for us, it is flooding. Why is it that we talk about flooding so much in the communities? It's simply because in these communities of ours, we are facing, we don't have proper housing, the drainage. And what can we do to make sure that we have proper drainage? What can we do to make sure that we don't have trash lying all over? You can go to the other slide. There you go again. We talk about global challenges, the global emergency, which is climate change. But then for us, we are talking about contamination due to these trash piles, which are lying all over our communities. And it's last year that I documented a story about 5 people who lost their lives in Kibra due to the flooding. You can go to the next slide, please. And yes, so as I said, there's hope, because we can't sit down and see things happen the way they happen and keep on complaining. So through Muungano Wanavijiji, we have a lot of initiative, and we thank the voices of Just Climate Action, whereby now we have mapped the youth groups that are in the communities who are doing something around climate change. And apart from mapping, we've also gone ahead to support them, and also to come up with initiatives. And you can see in these photos that this is a garbage collection that is happening in Mathare, and that this is happening also in other informal settlements, also in Nakuru. So we have quite a number of activities that are happening, and this is just one of them. The other thing is we are having the tree planting, we are having the recycling, whereby now we are, the other day they were saying that climate change is business, but for us in the communities, we are saying it's business unusual. We can't just speak about business. For us, it's business unusual. For us who are living in the informal settlement. But now, for us to get into the negotiating table, what do we need to do? And the answer is simple. data. We need to do mapping. We need to make sure that our communities have the evidence to like negotiate, even at COP27. At COP27 in Egypt, we need to make sure that we are impacting our young peoples and also the community, like to like know how to correct data, how to analyze this data. And this is exactly what we're doing in Muungano. And as you can see in that photo, we have a team of young people who are being taken through a session of data correction. And I can tell you for sure, we've done quite an immense job when it comes to data collection and mapping here in Kenya. And we are also working with other organizations in this, like Arise, because for example, when you speak about health, in informal settlement, so we need like to link up with other organizations that are doing health-related things like Arise. So the other slide, please. I hope I'm not being that quick. And my good people, just look at this picture. Maybe you might think that that is a mountain. I tell you for sure, this is not a mountain. This is a garbage. This is a heap of garbage in Dandora. And one of the greatest risks around this area is we are having like young women miscarriaging due to the emission. This area has a lot of industries, and the emissions are immense. And as you can see, like when you get there, the environment changes, and you can smell a very different, like the smell here, it's very different from other areas, I tell you for sure. So that is not a mountain, that is a heap of garbage. And this is in Nairobi. So the next slide, please. So that is me. And before I wind up, I want to say that I know for sure that housing, I know for sure that building and construction sector account to 39% of global energy-related carbon dioxide emissions. But we are saying it, okay, that it is 39%, but that is to the high income countries. But for us, we are low income countries, but we still insist we need better housing in our communities. And also we need like to come together to like make sure that this climate conversation is being trickled down. Like we are, like the language is not that complicated for us, people living in the communities. And finally, I can say we in Muungano, we have the networks, we have the skills, we have the capacity. So it's the high time you hold our hands and we'll make our communities better. So thank you so much.
Umeme Nicera, thank you very much. I'm still hoping that Yirah will be able to join, but while we wait for Yirah, Nambozo, I'm praying your network works. Sarah, could you talk us through your experiences in Uganda? Please introduce yourself, your city, your saving scheme as you usually do. Thank you. Go ahead, Sarah.
Thank you, Mabe. I'm Sarah Nambozo Luka, a federation member from Uganda, a national leader of the National Slum Dwellers Federation. I serve with a saving group called Doko Kwinyuke Saving Group at the grassroots level. I originate from that group to be where I am today. Like Nicera has put it, we are looking at climate change, how it affects the grassroots people, and how are we intervening or responding as community. First, the global challenge of flooding. You realize that when floods come, it goes direct, it affects mostly the people on ground in informal settlements. Because of one issue, we don't have like a planned housing we don't have like settlements, these settlements planned that when it rains, water will flow from this channel. So you realize in floodings, a lot of things, many things come up, like diseases. When floods come, people get different diseases, suffer a lot. The issue of health in flooding is so much. Like recently in Uganda, we had a flooding where it took lives of people, and many poor people was left homeless. Now, as I talk, children are not going to school because all their properties were washed away with floods. We have people not having where to sleep because their houses were broke down. And now it is us, the members, who are trying to house those people, minus any other interventions like government having a plan to see that they hope those people have where to put up. But it's now us, the community members ourselves, helping each other to see that we house our friends. We have another challenge of drought when it comes. You realize again, the poor people is the most affected people. We have insecurity of food. There, people with the poor people, you know, they are low income earners. They don't even manage to buy food. You realize they may have a meal or without a meal even a day. So food insecurity is also a challenge. And when we were in the Africa, when we were in the last meeting of Climate Week, I realized people are talking from the top, not realizing that these challenges are originating from the bottom. So if we are talking about the climate change, it's not about level, but what are we? Are these poor people having clean water? Are they having improved housing? Those are also part of climate change. If we can do that on ground, then it means we are going to solve the problem. As community, we are organized. Sorry? As community.
2 minutes, Sarah. 2 minutes,
Okay.
Sarah.
As community, we are organized in saving groups. We are collecting data. And this data is very important that it is we ourselves who are collecting it, and we are setting the priorities which will transform these settlements and also help in the climate change issues. We are using our savings as community to see that we fix ourselves in these challenges. So as we go forward, we are using the garbage to recycle, and then also get clean cooking materials like briquettes, like having clean cooking stoves so that we can preserve the environment. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Sarah, and thank you for yielding and ensuring that you wrap up. I think, Yirah, you are in the house now. Could you also speak about your experience in Freetown? And please stick to 5 minutes. I'm being very ruthless with time.
Good afternoon, everybody. That's my own time. Please believe me. I think my name is Yirah, and very, very hectic. Just as I was saying, what really is happening now is very, very devastating for us living in an informal settlement, and the flooding is taking over our communities and our cities as a whole, both the hilltop and then the seaside of the slums. But we were having a lot of flooding last week. This past Sunday again was a serious one, where a lot of people, houses were flooded with water. They were moving from one place to another. Most of them are being rescued by some of their friends, and some of them are moving to evacuation centers like community centers, mosques, and also churches. That's what we arranged. With the team that we are working on the ground, one community by the name of Colbot was flooded, and then the drainage was blocked. And then the mayor, we speak with the mayor with a meeting where she agreed she would take a bulldozer there. And then she went there with the bulldozer on her behalf. And then she cleared that particular drainage, which makes it happen. Because we realized that the flooding is happening, for us to have a resilience on this one, we are doing a tree planting that work with the mayor, which is a 1 million tree planting in the city. And FedUp has been the key CBO in this planting, which we plant and then we track. In most of the communities, we are working in 4 catchments, and all those catchments we are working are catchments that are represented by the informal settlement, and we are taking lead in planting those ones. The recent one that we just did is the mangrove planting. Those that are living in the seaside, it is very, very interesting. Mangrove planting for the seaside is very interesting. So when they have the high rise of water, it comes into the community hall. But we realized, because with the service, CRS, and also with the municipality, that we have to plant mangroves, where we plant 68,000 mangroves, and we have 67,000 now. That is happening now. We are going. I just come from the field before I head to this meeting. And we are also establishing community climate actions ambassadors, because as I was just saying, everything about climate change is at the top. How can we disseminate that message into our people, into those communities, for them to understand what is climate change? I think we have to relate that language at the top, right down to the bottom, to show them that within our communities are part of the things that we are talking of climate change. So what we are doing that is negative to the communities reflects into climate change. That we need to understand. So we've trained up to 1,225 community climate actions ambassadors in each of those communities. Each communities have their own numbers. The reason is for us not only to talk of tree planting, but to talk on how we have to manage our communities so we can avoid the flooding, or we can reduce the flooding, or we can do any other things that will make we have the resilience within our community. So these ambassadors are being trained, and we certify them where the municipality signed, FedUp signed, Kurisapa also signed, just for being resilience to them, that they will take responsibility in communities. And during the flooding, we see the great role that they play. Before, it was called a community disaster management committee. But now that we realize that because of our activities that is relating to what we are talking, so we've changed from community disaster management committee to community climate action ambassador, where we train them again, give them new training on the aspect of climate change, so we can understand the dynamics on our own level. So it has to be a bottom-top approach, whilst we are coming from the bottom, go up, and then the higher authority are also coming, and so we can have a synergy on how we can reduce or mitigate the climate change within our country. But it's very, very devastating. As we are talking now, we have more than 300 or 400 people that are still homeless because of the kind of rain that has come this past 2 Sundays. I was not in town the past 2 Sundays. I was in Denmark representing SBI, but I got a phone call, and then they sent me the video of really what happened. It was very, very serious. And then when I'm home, I just went to one of the communities that is called CCODE, which is across 6 communities. I really went and saw a lot of things that has happened. Those communities, there are 6 at the coasters where we are planting the mangroves. Some houses were full with sand, some houses were broke down, and a lot of things has happened there. So we are there to see how best we can put things in place, and relocating some of them into some of the places where they can do until they get back into the houses. So climate change issue is very, very serious. I think we have to make it very, very paramount in all our activities we are doing. It's not all about our savings, all about our data collection, but how we can impact the knowledge of people in our communities for our activities that we are doing, so we can have a resilience of the climate change community. So that's what we can do. We have to index it in any of the activities SDI is doing. It has to be the paramount that for any support to any PSO, we have to include the climate change package on it. So we have to make sure we work along with that particular package. I think that will help us. As we take the savings very serious, let's take climate actions very serious again. So it can match between the savings and then the climate change actions. So we can have a resilience in our community. Even though we don't have that kind of 100% to work on it, but we have to do our best. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Yirah. You get the trophy for keeping time. Apologies also, I think the sound there, I don't know if it's my ears, but the sound was also problematic. But I'm hoping that we all had some takeaways from Yirah's presentation, especially around looking at nature-based solutions as a way to address flooding in coastal settlements that are prone to the rising sea levels. We will move into the next session where we will have two case studies that are from Zambia and Malawi, where we're looking at actions that are being taken by SDI affiliates around locally led adaptation in informal settlements. We'll start with Zilire, Luka, and Happiness Zidana from Malawi. Over to you, Zilire and Happiness.
Thank you so much, Beth. I'm supposed to be joined by my colleague Happiness. She's in the field, so she's yet to get to the office. She's going to join me as soon as she comes. So, and thank you so much, and good afternoon, good evening to all of you. As introduced by the moderator, my name is Zilire Luka from Malawi. Today we are going to discuss with you a project that we are supporting people living in informal settlements. And my presentation is transformative capacities for adaptation planning and implementation that works for the urban poor, local-led adaptation in practice. Next slide, Ariane. So as a background, Malawi is one of the least urbanized countries. We have only 16% of our population living in urban areas, but we are also urbanizing at a high level with an estimated annual urbanization rate of 5.2, which is among one of the highest in Africa. So because of that high urbanization rate and the high population growth rate, urban population or urban councils are struggling to provide services to the people. So we have 75% of our people living in informal settlements, where we all know issues of water, sanitation, housing, livelihood, a big challenge. But of late, we have started experiencing the effect of climate change. So it was already a bad situation, and the climate change has compounded the challenges that people face. So in view of that, as the Alliance, CCODE and the Federation, we came up with a project. Next slide. We came up with a project whose aim is to strengthen community capacities to respond to disasters. Because of climate change, we have seen that disasters are increasing in both intensity and frequency. I'll give an example that previously, the issue of cyclones was something that we didn't know, but we have been receiving cyclones again and again, landing in Beira, Mozambique, and affecting the whole country, as Zambia and the other neighboring countries. So the aim of our project is to mobilize and organize communities, including their participation structures, to build the local knowledge and the capacities around issues of disasters, and also to establish long-lasting partnerships with resource holding authorities. These are government institutions and the service providers. Next slide. So our work basically revolves around the 5 key issues. We have been doing this work for the past decade, and it's basically we are building urban governance, because we think and believe that you can deliver sustainable urban resilience where governance works. where you have broken systems of governance, you are going to struggle to deliver services to the people. So we are in urban disaster risk management. We are in urban planning, working with communities to plan and replan their settlements. We are supporting communities, informal settlements, more especially around issues of informal livelihoods, on formalizing informal livelihoods, but we're also involved in resilient infrastructure and basic services. So piloting simple or small projects around the footbridges, around drainage systems, around the access to water and sanitation, because all these are related to issues of climate change and building resilience of the urban poor. Next slide. So basically, to start with, we are building a robust understanding of climate risk and uncertainty. The thing is, what we have seen on the ground is people are not aware of climate change. They do not have information. The information that is there, my colleagues have already alluded to that, is packed in formats that are not easily accessible to people living in informal settlements. So what we are doing is to facilitate community awareness around issues of informal settlements. We are supporting communities to collect data, to understand the nature, types, and the frequency of disasters that are affecting them, and also supporting them in various works. But central to that, we are also demonstrating the centrality of women in building urban resilience. People are aware that in societies like ours are highly patriarchal, where men take the lead. So we are demonstrating that women can do this work, and through our savings groups, women have taken a lead in supporting their settlements around the issues of climate resilience building. Next slide. We also understand that for people to participate meaningfully, they have to be involved. And for them to be involved is an issue of ensuring that there's a devolved way of decision making, making sure that the lowest levels of society is being involved in the discussion and negotiations. So what we are doing is we are supporting communities, apart from reorganizing and organizing communities, we are supporting communities to form committees, the ward development committees. We have what we call the ward level civil protection committees, just to make sure that we have contributed or finalized the decentralization reforms, where decision making made at the community level, and they go up. We also support communities, these governance structures, in data collection for them to understand their situation. We do risk mapping and the basic services mapping, just for them to understand the services that are available and what is missing in their settlements. Supporting communities around the issues of advocacy, building pressure from the bottom, and also piloting issues of nature-based solutions and the EBAs. My colleagues have already alluded to that. But we are also aware that we need an integrated approach to address climate change or to build the resilience of the urban poor. So a lot of things, participation, making sure that youth are participating in these activities, and also making sure that the informal livelihoods, savings, making sure that people have skills are always considered when we are at the community level. Next slide. Hope I still have time.
2 minutes, Zilire.
yeah, that's the map, the information that we are collecting in the community. You can go to the next slide. That's an engagement session where we had the planning students from the university working with communities to collect data. You can go to the next slide. So we are also aware that communities have to demonstrate that they have capacity, they know what they are talking about. So we are coming in with what we call innovative proper financing models, supporting communities to set up what we are calling the community managed funds. These are help financing model that empowers community to take control of their climate adaptation interventions. But we have also successfully advocated at the city level in Lilongwe for the city council to establish what we call the World Fund level. These are small grants that are being used to implement the basic service and infrastructure projects at community level. Next slide. And we know that to do this work, we need to partner with the various stakeholders. So we are emphasizing on building the capacities of communities as first responders, working in close collaboration with city authorities and the government departments for policy and implementation of projects, and also our partnership with the universities, our partnership with other like-minded institutions, the UN Habitat, and the blah, blah, blah. Oh, for the investments that so far we have realized, we have managed to institute what we are calling the Nation Slum Upgrading Program. That's a national level program that is looking at the improvements in slum upgrading. And the City Council is also undertaking, as we are talking, a mass land regularization program, a program in informal settlements that is giving titles to people living in informal settlements. So far, 500 people or thereabout have had their plots regularized, and we hope that is going to continue. Finally, we think there are issues that we have to look at when we talk about the building resilience of the urban poor. So we have to talk about the governance for adaptation, because in the absence of improved governance, then we should forget about building the resilience of the urban poor. So again, we are emphasizing on building the capacities of the poor. We are also emphasizing on providing support to city governments to ensure competency, capacity, and accountability as well. We are also calling for shifting understanding of informality. We feel is something that has to be highlighted. And but finally, we have to focus on some politics because climate change and climate change financing will come to and fit in the wider ball, and we're already struggling to have resources in informal settlements. Even if we receive climate change financing, we are likely not going to have it at the community level. So we have to focus on the reforms, decentralization reforms, to make sure that people at the community level are participating. And so we are also thinking about factors, political factors, or you can think of them as change spaces. These are issues to do with eviction. You have to look at issues of relationships between communities and city governments, space for informal livelihoods, land tenure, which is very critical, and the provision of formal infrastructure and the services. I think that's what we are doing at the community level, supporting the picture there. We are training people in composting, that's building their resilience, and also taking away waste from the communities. And another picture there, you see a man planting grass along a river as a nature-based solution to the challenges that they are facing in their settlements. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Zilire. Thank you very much. We will move to Melanie. Melanie, I'm asking, Zilire took your time, so you have to stick to exactly 7 minutes. Over to you, Melanie.
Okay, thank you. My name is Melanie Chirwa, and I work with People's Process on Housing and Poverty in Zambia, together with the Zambia Homeless and Poor People's Federation, and of course, we are part of SDI. Zambia has a population of around 20 million, and 40% of our country is urban. And of the urban dwellers, 70% live in informal settlements, where we face similar challenges as has been highlighted by our fellow affiliates from other countries. Today, I'm going to hand over the presentation to Esnat, who's going to share a little bit more and focus more on the solutions that we are working on in the communities with regards to waste management. And just as a background, in Lusaka, we are producing around 1,000 tons of waste every day, and only 30% of that waste goes to the designated landfill. So meaning that the rest of the waste is just dotted around the communities and everywhere and causing a lot of trouble. And with climate change coming in, it brings a lot of challenges. So I'll hand over to Esna. She will introduce herself and she will make the presentation. Thank you.
Good evening, wherever you are. I'm Esnat Mwale from Zambia. I'm a member of Zambian Homeless and Poor People Federation. My savings scheme is CCODE, which means working together. So I'm here to share with you the climate change and how it is affecting our lives and how we can address the challenges. I live in an informal settlement where it's about 300,000 people. And living in an informal settlement, it means facing challenges like poor access to water, poor houses, poor toilets. So in my community, especially when it's raining, it gets flooded. And these floods, you can't even take your own children to school. You can't do your business as usual. You can't even take the sick patient to the hospital. So the houses get flooded. While our children sleeping on the floor, they get flooded. So this is really giving us challenges. So what are we doing with the Federation and the SDI? First of all, we are trying to help each other, like gathering in green spaces. And these green spaces is where you see, where we find land, where you allocate land, you talk to authorities, this land where they dump waste, and you turn this land into green spaces. And these green spaces, it's where we gather. We don't only gather money, we gather information, we gather solutions. You can go to the next slide. So when we gather these solutions, which we share, which also helps our communities, this is where we do different types of things. Some are even trained. So trying to reduce the waste in our community by making compost. This compost, after making the compost, we do our sack gardenings. So these sack gardenings, you can even do your vegetables just to try and sell, earn a little money using the small environment or the small place that you have. Even behind your house, you can do it. You do your sack gardening to help your children, to help take your children to school. So by so doing, we also plant varieties of plants. You can go to the next slide. So we also plant different types of things using the sack gardening. As you can see, these are women in Zambia. They were doing their potato sack gardening. At the end of the day, they managed to sell, put food on the table. It's also a nutritious food. So this is one of the ways where this waste in the community can be reduced. And it can really help our community to keep our environment clean and healthier. You can go to the next slide. By so doing, here it's where we plant varieties of vegetables. You can see there's pumpkin leaves, there's even green tea leaves, there's different types of things that you can plant just to make your environment clean using the same compost manure, because we also produce fertilizer, organic fertilizer from the same waste from the community. You can go to the next slide. By so doing, this compost manure, you can also produce black soldier fly. I was one of them who was trained to produce black soldier fly. There are so many weights in our community which are thrown everywhere. And we use these bottles that are thrown because some companies, yes, they are trying to recycle the bottles, but we are also trying to keep our communities healthier. We use the bottles, do a structure for using the black soldier fly. You can even use the same structure for your nesting. You can go to the next slide. So this is how we are trying to reduce the compost in our community. And this is the day when it was a World Day cleanup. We invite councillors, MPs, just to come aboard. We share how we can put our communities healthier, how we can reduce the waste in the community, how we can put our environment clean. By so doing, we also believe in the savings. This savings group is where we group and where we get solutions, where we get ideas, and it's where we also encourage one another how we can use the waste, how we can also use our environment, and to encourage one another not to throw waste anyhow.
Can you wind up, please?
Yes. So these are the solutions that really helps our community. So I'm encouraging fellow women out there in the communities. The only way we can help each other is to come and address, exchange, and partner, so that this climate change, which is adding on the problems that we already have, so that we can try and reduce the waste in our community. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for keeping to time as well. So we've come to the end of the presentation from the SDI affiliates. What I would like to do is to call upon our two partners, Mr. David Tembo, who is a principal in the principal housing development officer in the Ministry of Housing and Infrastructure in Zambia, and Julian to kind of reflect on the presentations that have been made so far, specifically to look at what you see as being unique about the way the different SDI affiliates are responding to the climate crisis, and what do you see as the added value of organized communities organizing around addressing the climate crisis. So perhaps we start with Mr. Tembo. Over to you. And you have 10 minutes.
Thank you so much. Am I audible? Am I audible? Thank you so much.
Yes, you are.
Yes, please.
I think on a lighter note, I feel like a lion in the den of Daniels. No, just reflecting on the efforts by SDI Alliance is quite intriguing. They have very few resources, but look at the magnitude of the work they are doing to alleviate the poverty, the climate change issues. it's quite intriguing. For example, here in Zambia, I think it's also common in the other Malawi, I think Uganda presentation. The government works out certain modalities with the SDI affiliates. For example, allow me to mention some examples, my personal experience with SDI alliances. This collaboration has been going on for years and years. For example, a case in mind, 2009, there was a settlement where the SDI Federation members in Livingstone, they came to the government for assistance in water reticulation network. The government offered the support. And what was intriguing is how the women, the youth, came in to help in the excavating of the trenches for the pipes. That was quite intriguing for me. And also the recent project we just launched, where our minister launched on behalf of the president at Kasupe, and the other one lasted 10 miles. Could see how the women were helping out in the land clearance, you know. That was also very intriguing. Then also, as government, we try to help out in a small way, but it helps a lot. For example, in the 2 plots I talked of, the Kasupe and 10 miles, we asked the Ministry of Local Government, the Planning Authority, to waive the planning fees. That really helped the ladies or the poor, the urban poor, to have decent houses. Then also, sometimes, you know, it's people. When you see people are organized, it's easy to help them. If people are not organized, it's very, very difficult. We've noticed that. This is my personal experience with the Federation of Homeless People. There's a lady, my sister, Amai Lungu, Mrs. Lungu. She is very vibrant. Then also the Melanie team, you know, when they come to you, they don't come with an empty plate. They come at least full or half full or 3/4 full. Then you help each other. Sometimes it's a situation where they come with a full plate, government comes in with it. 2 plates, 1.5 plates. Then, not the least, but I also benefited from the training of the SDI alliances. I was doing a master's program at UMSA. When we were doing the GIS, I had challenges with my laptop. When we finished the course, they were doing a community program where the community was doing community mapping, community GIS. I was part of the beneficiaries. Quite an interesting program. I wish we can sit again and roll it out, because a lot of us benefited a lot. Especially the community where when they map, they use sticks, stones. It was quite interesting. Then also a few years back, my current director, and I think the director for the chief executive of National Housing Authority, they were taken on a study tour to Namibia by the SDI Alliance, where they learned how the community, the poor people, the marginalized, are working very well with government. I think for me, personally, that's what I can say. At least the examples they've talked of, the Zambian, Malawi, this is quite interesting. And also, before I forget, we are rolling out the participatory slum upgrading program, phase 3. The SDI alliances are very active in that program. When I say very active, really very active. And you know, they give you headache, but the headache is worth it. In the end, you see the light at the end of the tunnel. I think for now, that's what I can say.
Thank you very much, Mr. Tembo. I like I think the phrase that we often use is kind of like taking pedagogy on its head and ensuring that we unteach all of the local authorities and government officials what they have learned. And so it's quite interesting that you mentioned how you personally have benefited from the work that the Federation is doing on the ground and looking at new ways of planning and in an inclusive manner. So thank you very much for that input. I'll move over to Julian. Julian, over to you. Similar question, what do you see as the sort of like unique selling point of working with organized communities around addressing the climate emergency? What can you take out of the various case studies that have been presented here? Thank you. Over to you, Julian. Can you just ensure that Julian Baskin can come through? Hello, do we have a technical problem? Can someone just answer? Because
Julian, we can't hear you.
Okay. Julian, can you hear us? Yeah, okay, great.
We can hear you now. No, I think that was David. Julian, I'm wondering if it's your headset, maybe?
Yeah, because you do have co-hosting rights, Julian, so you should be able to come through. It wouldn't be a web-based conference without a technical hitch. So yeah, great. Any luck?
Julian, you might need to disconnect your earphones and speak directly to your laptop, because sometimes that's the issue. No.
That's not okay.
I'm just very happy that Sarah Nambozo, in an informal settlement in Jinja, was able to come, and Julian sitting in Brussels is having problems. So, yay, technology. Any luck, Julian?
Julian, if you click on next to the microphone on your Zoom screen, there's like a little arrow, and it might say select. If you click on that, select as microphone, and then just check what you have selected there as your microphone. If something is, maybe that's where the problem is.
Could I make a suggestion? While we try, could we go into like the panel, and then Julian can come in with closing remarks? That way we don't lose time. Could we do that? He says he's getting terrible feedback. So Julian, I'm suggesting that you come at the end, and in the meanwhile, we go to the next session. That way we have some time to sort out the technical issues. Shall we do that? Okay.
Perfect.
Great. So what I would like to do is to field some questions to all our speakers.
As he's sorting that out.
So we have just like three questions, like how does meaningful participation with organizing and core communities increase impact? That's one. And then what is required of communities and other stakeholders in order to replicate and scale up this work? Because oftentimes the biggest issue is not so much piloting interesting projects. I think we've seen from what the Zambians are doing, from what the Malawians are doing, the Sierra Leone's and the Ugandans. We are not short of examples. What is often problematic is how we scale this up to actually have meaningful change. And then in the meantime, people can also put in questions or comments in the chat, and we can come to that. We will try and be done with this part of the session by 10 to 5, so that we can have Julian's closing remarks. fingers crossed, will have resolved the technical issues. So Sarah, Yirah, Nicera, Zilire, Mr. Tembo, Melanie, how do you think we can have meaningful partnerships with urban poor communities so that we can scale up these kind of examples that you have presented? Anyone? I'm not sure I can see hands, or I'm hoping I can see hands, but if I can't, can someone let me know if someone has a hand?
Can I talk?
Yes, please, go ahead.
Okay. Yes. This is David Tembo from Zambia, the Minister of Housing and Infrastructure. I think constant engagement, fruitful engagement, where we come up with proactive activities or solutions. We need to be talking all the time. We need to be meeting. Because if we don't meet, us on the government side, we want to know what is happening there. You on the other side also want to know. But if we meet, we have, I don't know whether forums or meetings, whatever, we need to be talking. Then from there, we map out strategy. Then we meet again, then we continue. I think we need to engage each other, not look at each other. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Tembo. Anyone else? You either just shout or raise your hand.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sarah, go ahead.
Yes, like Mr. David has put it, we need to have everyone on board wherever there's something we want to put forward. Then another thing is also appreciating the works or the efforts of community works, so that if they are also put at the forefront in planning and then designing and implementation issues, these things are going to be of value. Then you realize we shall have a value of money, because when we collect that and then we have prioritized our issues and then they are funded, you see that these challenges are now going to be. And then also having our information we collect, data we collect, the reports we produce, to use them in planning. It is also going to help us to see that we move forward. Then relationship we put up, or partnership, each one to appreciate one another in what we are doing together. Then I think I go on what is required. It is, can I finish at once on what is required on the second? Yeah.
Go ahead,
okay.
Sarah,
What is required? Okay. What is required is to have resources at the grassroots. Like Zilire put it, if we have resources in communities, everything is going to be fine. Then having learning exchanges from where it has worked, and then to see that we push that. Also having empowering communities to champion this. It is going to help us. Yeah, for now, because of time, that's what I can put across. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. We have two comments, earlier comments from Lesego, Ihape, and Rolf Shenton. Rolf is speaking to the connection between droughts and floods, and why it is important to have healthy soils in order to address this. And then Lesego was talking about how oftentimes it's in the experience, and especially in the South African context, it often is quite challenging to get communities organized and invested in options that might address existing challenges on the ground. And she makes reference to sustainable and clean energy in her comments. Nicera, over to you, and then Zilire. I understand your hands are up.
I'll be quick, and this is what I have to say. If we want to have a meaningful partnership, we must speak the same language, the same table, not others standing, others peeping at the door, and others leaning on the shoulders. If we speak the same language, we are going to have meaningful engagement. And what do I mean? If you have the blue box and I have the red box, can you try to make your blue box a red box? Is that possible? And in this case, I'm speaking about communities, whereby communities come up with ideas, and then on the other side, they have their different ideas. And can we adapt to what communities need and not the other way around? The next thing is, as Luka mentioned, we need to exchanges are very important, and exchanges to learn best practices. If I go to Zambia and learn about what Melanie they're doing, if I go to South Africa and learn about what Beth is doing, I think embracing exchanges, local and also international exchanges, and Rastri. I think the language is a barrier. The language is a barrier, and that is the main thing that is affecting the climate conversation. And we're just saying that let's localize the language. Let's make sure we understand. Even the Mama Mboga in the community understands what is climate change. How is it affecting her in her household? Can we break it down to there? I know it is possible. And of course, I know it's possible, and a lot is being done through the process of just climate change. And I'm happy that I can see progress, and we are getting there.
Thank you, Nicera. Zilire, over to you.
Thank you. I think we all agree that meaningful participation or meaningful partnerships will come in when people are willing to co-create. So co-creation is the key word that we have to focus on. And now when you talk about co-creation, you start asking other questions. Can co-creation exist in situations or societies where decentralization reforms are not functional? So we also have to look at the policy side to say, how are we going to co-create in societies that are not functional at governance level? So co-creation will only happen where government is willing to involve community at the ground. And the other thing has been mentioned by Nicera about language. We need to do something about the language, because if you look at the funding for climate change financing, you are feeding 500 pages at a go. For community organizations like ours, it's not something that we can do. We are not asking for the language to be watered down, but we're asking for the language to be packed in forms that people at the community level can access. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Zilire. I think as SDI, when we started engaging at the global level around these issues, we found the whole climate debate quite elitist, and I think it might seem like a very insignificant issue, but it's absolutely critical that the language and the concepts that are being pushed at the global level as solutions are accessible and understood at every level, and that is not couched or created for people that have access already to the global stage. So I think those are not insignificant challenges. Thank you so much for that. Julian, are you able to join now?
I think so. Can you hear me?
Yeah, great. Yes, we can hear you. Please go ahead.
I'm really apologize. I'm not sure what happened there. Yes, I've been working with SDI for many years, And I think you only have to go to countries where SDI is not present to understand the impact of SDI. And the key issue at hand for me is that we are dealing with a situation in Africa where climate change is really yet another crisis on top of many other crises. And one of the other crises is that urbanization, the rate of urbanization in Africa is the fastest in history. And it's happening at a time, when cities simply don't have the capacity to respond. So for example, in most African cities, there's only 24% of the capacity that other countries have within their cities to manage cities of the same size. So the solution has to be a partnership between cities and communities. Because if you don't have the capacity in local government, you can leverage an incredible amount of additional planning capacity and implementation capacity through working with organizations of the urban poor. Sorry, can you hear me still?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, yes. So to me, if we are to deal with climate change and at the scale at which climate change happens, we really have to focus on building the partnerships that are required between local government and organizations of the urban poor. And this is really quite difficult to achieve because in many countries, there's a history of distrust. Because for many times, the urban poor have been the victims of forced evictions and various other issues. They're often the victims of development rather than the beneficiaries of development. And one of the fundamental roles that SDI plays is building that relationship of trust between government and communities so that a real partnership can develop. Now, we already have many examples presented here, but I just want to mention one or two others. I think one of the key examples we have is that climate change is going to involve some very difficult conversations. Simply put, there are communities that, unless they relocate, will be badly impacted by climate change and will need to be relocated someplace or the other. But if government comes and says, you have to relocate, that is going to result in a great deal of distrust because of past relationships. But we have examples in places where communities themselves recognize the problem that they're in and have amongst themselves discussed what would be the preconditions for a successful relocation and how can we plan in advance for such a relocation so that it's not a forced relocation that happens overnight. And how do we do it in a way that it becomes part and parcel of the government's program? And we have examples in Liberia, for example, where communities have said, we recognize they will need to relocate, or at least part of the community will need to relocate. And these are the conditions that we think we can do it in. And this is the plan that we put forward for that to happen. But that's a very difficult discussion to have. And it's an organization like SDI that enables the confidence for that discussion to happen in a productive way. The second important point to be made about SDI is that cities don't have the planning capacity to deal with the rate of urbanization as it stands. So cities really need to plan the macro structure of the city to make sure that people don't settle on land that is environmentally sensitive, that is needed for future eco-services. But then the rest of the planning, the planning of the slum upgrading, the planning of the settlements that happen can be left to community-based planners if they're supported by organizations like SDI, who can collect the data, who can help lay out the areas, and who can, through sort of settlement forums, ensure that the area is settled properly and that various land uses are respected. And finally, one of the big successes I think we've demonstrated through SDI is that local people know what their priorities are. And quite frankly, if managed correctly, resources for small-scale infrastructure in the hands of community contractors will end up with a far greater amount of infrastructure, far greater value for money than putting small infrastructure projects out to large tenders. And I think that this idea of SDI building trust, enabling difficult discussions to happen, being able to plan local settlements and can undertake small infrastructure projects, if all those things happen, then I think we have a far greater chance of dealing with the impacts of climate change. And we have successful examples of all those things happening in partnership with SDI. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Julian. I'm glad that we got to address the technical challenge in just for your very insightful comments there. I think it aligns very much to the comment made by Zilire around governance as an imperative. Good governance is an imperative for scaled up solutions. Thank you so much. And thank you so much to all our panelists. We just have 6 minutes. I just want to see whether there are any additional comments.
Hello.
I think Rolf is a question around, sorry, Yirah, just a minute, around unusually rapid urbanization in the poor agricultural policies. I think the issue around urbanization to some extent is how for most of African cities it has been decoupled from urbanization. So the trajectory of urbanization in cities in the global north was always linked to opportunity. But in a lot of our cases, it has been about push factors. And ultimately, it is incumbent upon local government and communities to find solutions that work. And some of the examples that have been discussed here are looking at what is possible. We as SDI often talk about mobilizing one family at a time, one settlement at a time, and one city at a time. In this way, that's how you create aggregations. And Yirah, do you have a burning intervention? We have, it's 4 minutes to 6. I would like to release people and just perhaps, Yirah, as you make your comment, can you also then thank everyone and we can close the section on my behalf and my colleagues at the Secretariat. Thank you very much, everyone. So Yirah, over to you.
Yep. Thank you very much for the opportunity given to us to speak our voice. And yes, what we really understand on the urbanization, this one is a high level, as Zidana already said, is because of decentralization, and then that's why causing the problem. But what we are saying, SDI has the capacity to build a concept that we can follow as we've done before for us. It's because of SDI and the concept of rituals we have in our table. That's what we are using in improving like data collection, profiling, and so on and so forth. So on this part of the climate change, we need to come together as a nation or as a team to build that particular concept which we can follow, that can be digested into our own context as a Sierra Leone, as a Liberian, as a Zimbabwean, as a Malawi. So we can have the same thinking, and then we can have to achieve.
Thank you.
So I want to thank everyone for being part of the meeting, and that's very useful and fruitful. We have to continue the communications and interactions so we can exchange our knowledge, then we can build our capacity in our communities to move forward so that we can have a reduction in climate change. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Yirah, and thank you everyone from the organizers in South North who are convening this. Thank you everyone. There is if you look in the chat box, there is a Padlet where you can rate and further discuss these sessions. But thank you everyone. The conference continues tomorrow with other interesting sessions. Have a lovely evening, everyone. Bye-bye.